toward securing our elections. We have one vote, and we'd like it to count. We ask for your gracious and kind favor, dear God, and it is in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, our precious Lord and powerful Lord, that we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. And now I'd like you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to take a moment to thank all our veterans and first responders who are here and who have and are now serving our country. Please stand. We have any veterans here? Thank you. Thanks. I would also like to recognize any public officials, representatives, and all of you who are working on election integrity projects in your respective counties. Thank you for doing all this. We appreciate it. I'd also like to thank Scott Taylor for doing our videography this evening and making it available to anyone who would like it. Whoever, if you're interested, let him know. Thanks, Scott. On your table, you will find a manila folder. I think there's one at every table. Dr. Frank travels all over the country speaking and teaching about our elections, and he does this at his own expense. Please consider giving generously to help defray his costs as he works on this worthy cause. Also at your table, there is a 7-step trifold folder. You can take that home. Right here, it's like this. If there's one for all of you, and there's a few extra. You can take that home, and read it, and lays out a plan to help take back our elections. There's also notepads and pens. But I would like to ask you to save your questions for later on when Dr. Frank makes that time available. We don't want to have the questions early. We want to listen to what Dr. Frank has to teach us. There's snacks on the table over there, water, help yourself. The restrooms are behind the snack table through that hallway. The men's is on the left, ladies is on the right. Okay, I think that's all I have to cover. So last year at this time, we met in this same place to hear Dr. Frank teach about the state of our elections. It really opened our eyes. I am sure this evening will do the same and will help us make our elections fair and honest in the future. We have one vote. We want it to count. Once again, it is my honor to introduce to you election integrity expert, Dr. Douglas Frank.
Thank you. Thank you. Is this a wireless? I'll walk around with it if that's all right. Even though I took opera for a lot of years, I know how to project. I still think it's probably better to have the mic. Don't you think?
Yes.
Good. Good to be with you. I was here a year ago. I just put the thing up there. I just want to share an experience that I just had 3 weeks ago. So I met with Scott Taylor and his team of election integrity folks from the Ohio Patriot Alliance for about 2 hours. And then after that, I was just leaving the room, and Dave was about to start his meeting, and the pastor that was supposed to talk didn't show up, right? Yes, sir. And your meeting was supposed to be about an hour or something like that. And so Dave said, why don't you just start talking to the people and tell them what's going on? Was that like 3 hours?
3 hours.
We went on for 3 hours. In other words, I think people are hungry to know what's going on, and they don't know.
Yep.
And that has been a big eye-opener for me. I'm a scientist. I came to Ohio back in 1986. I'm a physicist. I think that all you need to do to fix things is do an experiment and show the results and show the evidence. And I had to learn that that doesn't work. That isn't the way our country works. It took me a year, I think, to learn that lesson. And one of the things is I'm noticing that it isn't just me that's needing to learn. The people are way in the dark. The people don't have a clue what's going on. And it's like my job has become shaking people up out of their slumber, making them face reality, and then taking the appropriate actions. Let me do a thought experiment with you for a moment. Thought experiment is something that's, you don't actually do the experiment, you just imagine what it would be like if you did the experiment. What would you do tonight if Mexico invaded us today? What would you do? Would you go turn on Fox News? Maybe a little, to find out maybe some news. What would you? I would call my neighbors. I'd want to find out, what militia do we have? Who's got guns? Okay, how are we going to defend ourselves? Are there any former military guys in the area that know that set up our operations to defend ourselves? Well, guess what, guys? We're at war. It's called a fifth generation war. We're in the war, and we're all asleep and we don't even know it, and they're taking over our country day by day. And what are we all doing? We aren't forming teams and fighting the war like you would fight a war, because we don't think of it as a war. But it is. And that's what I have to get people to kind of change the way you think about things. Once you do that, you'll realize, whoa, we're taking the totally wrong approach here. And then you'll adjust your strategy. So it was fun. Scott met me as I drove up in the parking lot, and he says, Dr. Frank, you're meeting with me. You really changed my way of thinking. I have a whole new direction now. He realized a lot of the work he was doing before is really, it's not a waste. I wouldn't want to call it a waste, but it's just the wrong direction. If you're being attacked by the Mexicans, that's not the time that you go plant crops, okay? Is there anything wrong with planting crops? No, planting crops is fine, but right now we got to get ready for the battle that's about to happen, right? So there's there's a mindset. And just to kind of give you a personal experience, a couple years ago, so I've been reading all these books because I'm trying to change the way I think about things too. And this is Sun Tzu, Art of War. And I had it out. I was at an event with General Flynn, and he saw that I had it, and I was looking at it, and he says, carry that with you everywhere you go and read it every day like the Bible. That's what he said. And I got to tell you, it's really changed the way I think about the work we're doing. And because of that, we're far more effective. Because I'm not thinking in terms of all I have to do is show the evidence. Ohio is one of my first secretaries of states I met with. I met with LaRose in April of 2021. Maybe it was May. Yeah, I think it was May. I'm already ahead of myself on my slides, but since I started, I might as well just jump right in, yeah? So I met with him. I didn't want to do it, but Lystone made me. He said, you got to meet with LaRose. You got to show him your evidence. You got to convince him what we got to do to fix this. And I met with him, and he recorded the meeting. I didn't know that he recorded it. We met for about 2 hours. And there are a couple of things that stick out. I don't want to give you the whole 2-hour meeting, but right at the beginning, I was showing him some of my calculations, and I was proving that our elections in Ohio could not be real. Statistically, it was impossible that they could be real. And the guys were like, we tried to reproduce your calculations, Dr. Frank, but we were unable to. And so I said, okay, well, show me what you got. And I'm a math teacher, so we got it out, and I showed them where they made their mistakes, and then they were able to reproduce my results. And oh, wow. And I said, so, what are you going to do about it? And they said, well, I guess we realized we better start backing up our database. So until I met with the Ohio Secretary of State's office, they weren't backing up the voter database. They weren't making snapshots of it on a regular basis. Okay, I mean, that just kind of shows you the level of activity there. And then later, that meeting was recorded, and LaRose gave that recording to the New York Times. They did a whole expose on me. And they said, yes, Dr. Frank threatened LaRose. I didn't threaten him. I gave him an opportunity. I said, your machines are online. Your election is corrupt. If you work with us, we'll come in, we'll help you, we'll make you a hero. We'll make you into a national hero. But if you don't, we're going to make a fool out of you. Okay? Is that a threat? No, it's a choice I gave him, right? Okay? And then I'll just jump ahead and just show you something. I don't think I told you this last year. This is related to the Tina Peters thing, so I'll come back to that. Let me just show you this right here. There we go. So Lake County, Ohio, in 2021 was saying, we don't want to have the machines anymore because our people don't trust them, we don't trust them. And they went to LaRose and said, we want to get rid of these machines because we don't trust them and the people don't trust them. And LaRose said, oh, no, they're perfectly fine. They're perfectly fine. And they said, well, we think they're online. And so LaRose said, if you can prove that those machines are online, then you can get rid of them. So they called me. And I sent them a white hat hacker penetration tester. And during the spring election in 2021, we hacked into the election in Lake County. We documented everything. Every machine was online communicating through networks. We documented everything. We made a stack. It was funny, one of the election workers was online playing solitaire. It was ridiculous. Okay, so we documented everything, a stack of documentation. At that time, we were thinking, all we need to do is give the evidence to the Lake County officials, because then they'll go to LaRose and say, see, our machines are no good. By the way, we've done this in 6 counties across the country. Okay, we just weren't talking about it in 2021. And I was expecting LaRose to have egg on his face at that point. What he did was he called the FBI in. The FBI came in and investigated. Everything we did was legal. We had a federally licensed penetration tester come in and prove that the election was not secure and completely manipulatable. And I was expecting that to be a big deal. I was expecting to make a fool out of him, but nope, he just kind of covered the whole thing up. And Lake County officials all, put their tail between their legs and went and hid. Okay, that was the end of it. That was the way I was thinking in those days, that all we had to do was show what we were doing. Later that year, I met with the Secretary of State of Louisiana, Kyle Ardoin. He was the president of the National Secretaries of States Association, and I actually sat for an entire Sunday after church, an entire Sunday, hacking into his election right in front of his face through my cell phone in the state of Louisiana. And he was like, what do I do now, Dr. Frank? And I said, well, obviously your elections are not secure. He says, I always thought they were because I could monitor them on my cell phone. Testified and everything. And we were all set. Kyle Ardoin was all scheduled to stand up in front of the media and make the big announcement. We were all tuned in, all excited. He didn't show. And nobody could find him for about 2 months. He went underground. And then, after the election, he started resurfacing again around the country. And we caught him at a press conference. Some of the local Louisiana people did. And they said, hey, you met with Dr. Frank the day after the state GOP meeting for a whole day Sunday and hacked into the elections, and you agreed you were going to decertify the machines. What happened to that? And he denied the whole thing. I never met with Dr. Frank. I don't know what you're talking about. So the people that picked me up and drove me, from the hotel and drove me there, they wrote an affidavit. The people that brought us lunch, I remember it was eggplant parmesan. It was a great lunch. Somebody brought us Italian. Okay. The people that brought that signed affidavits that they were there and overheard part of the conversation. The hostess of that day, the people that picked me up, we collected a whole set of affidavits proving that I had been there and that we had had that meeting. And then we went to his office. I didn't, but the team did. Went to his office and said, we're going to make this public. We're going to expose you. The next day, he resigned. The Secretary of State of Louisiana, President of the National Secretaries Association, denies the whole thing, hides everything. So in those days, I was thinking that all we had to do was get the information into the hands of the legislators and get the information into the hands of the AGs and the Secretaries of States. And of course, being the great Republicans that they are, they would step up and say, yeah, we got to fix this. And boy, was I wrong. We only have one good Secretary of State in the entire country. Okay? His name is Chuck Gray. He's in Wyoming. Great Secretary of State. The rest of them all run for cover every time I come to town. They're afraid of me because I can hack into their elections, and then guess what happens? Then they have to admit that their machines are on networks that they're not supposed to be on. So anyway, I really got off on a tangent there, didn't I? But I don't think I ever told you that story. So that's new. A lot of that stuff that we do in the background, we don't tell people because there's stuff going on and you don't want to mess it up. And I guess I'll tell you a new little piece of nice thing. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Who has the power to make Secretary of States around the country behave that way?
Who has the power?
Yeah.
George.
Somebody.
Oh, God.
obviously, you know, Kyle Arden was a nice fellow. He and I had a great day together. I mean, I would have gone out to dinner with him, played golf with him. He seemed like a nice fellow. I think somebody threatened his life or his wife's life or something. And so it could just be any thug. So it could be any thug all the way up to big time, you know, World Economic Forum people. You could have a conspiracy thing. You could have, I don't know, but somebody.
I think that's a key question to find out why things operate the way they do.
So I think it's a key question too. Thank you for that leading question. I was at CPAC 2 weeks ago, and with Mike Lindell, and Mike spoke on Friday morning. I've got slides for this, but I'm just jumping in and telling you. So I was with Mike, and he spoke at 10:15 on Friday morning to the crowd, and it was well received. And then he was whisked away to the White House, where he spent 90 minutes with President Trump. And he gave him our plan, our results, all the stuff, all the hard work we've been doing for the last several years. And Trump said yes to every one of our requests, okay? Every one of our requests. One of the requests, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, with the Tina Peters thing. If you know, not familiar with the Tina Peters situation, I was just talking with Jeff and Carla about this. Jeff and Carla. Oh, by the way, if you want to see what LaRose had to say about this stuff, it was in all the newspapers. But everything is, you know, by election deniers, right? It's covered up with what we actually did.
Is that John Casey?
Yeah, we don't have many good people, do we?
Well,
You guys have, while I'm here, you guys have the ESMS machines.
I am going to remind
In
you,
this
all
county.
your questions still be
Yeah.
okay, but go on.
Before I forget, since I was on this topic, and before I go to CPAC to answer that leading question, which was a good one, you guys use the ESNS machines, and just so you know, we caught ESNS in 2020 shipping 33,000 machines. It was in the public. Exposed 33,000 machines to customers around the country with modems in them. Okay, they're not supposed to have modems in them. Okay, but they do. And so when they were caught, and the EAC, that's the Election Assistance Commission, caught them, they said, you can't ship machines with modems in it. That's against federal law. And they said, oh, don't worry about it. We turned them off. Well, how did you turn them off? With a password. Who has the password? The Secretaries of State and us. Okay? And so does Doug Frank. In fact, ESNS is based in Nebraska, Omaha, and I just was in Nebraska, and I was giving the passwords to all their machines, to all the county people, so that they could have them too. Wait a minute. You could have the passwords, and then in Colorado, Griswold, their Secretary of State, leaked the BIOS passwords for like 40 of their machines, 40 of their counties across the state. I mean, they exist, okay? You're not supposed to, that makes the machines illegal. That makes them not usable for federal elections. Well then, wait a minute, how come they're doing it, Dr. Frank? Because no one holds them accountable, okay? That was a huge thing for me to learn in 2021. I thought all I had to do was bring evidence, show people how bad it was, and that the courts would jump up and say, oh, this is a horrible thing, you guys can't do this anymore. We've had about a dozen lawsuits now across the country. Every one of them gets thrown out. And the case is basically a local citizen saying these machines are illegal, here's the evidence, and the court won't even hear it, okay? So the whole idea of a legal strategy has just been failing all over the country because the courts are set against us as well. So even though you have the evidence, you don't win. And while I'm quickly on that topic, now I got to come back to the CPAC thing. This is starting to sound like that 3-hour talk there, Dave. Yeah. What was I saying? Now I'm all freaked out. Yeah, I'll take you back to CPAC. I think I was a rabbit hole, but I think you guys are getting the hang of it, yes? Oh, I remember, in Georgia, Professor Halderman hacked into the Dominion machines right in front of the judge. That made national news, remember that? Did that change anything in the state of Georgia? No. Did it change how they run their elections? No, nothing. So even when you prove it in court, it doesn't have the effect. So there's a principle in Sun Tzu, in the Art of War. And the principle is you never let your enemy choose the battlefield. As soon as you start to win, they just change the rules. It's their battlefield. You have to choose the battlefield. And since we've been changing the battlefield, now we're winning. Okay, now we're winning. So anyway, in terms of holding people accountable, of course, everybody's saying, when are we going to start hanging these people, Dr. Frank? The sooner the better, as far as I'm concerned, because it's treason. But, you know, I'm just going to be honest. I didn't think Trump was going to win this election. And I'll show you some evidence here of why I thought that. It's not because I don't love the guy, but I think it's a miracle. Okay, I think we were given. I think we have a miracle that he is our president. And I don't think anybody on the left thought that they were going to be able to even have to worry about being held accountable. Okay, because he wasn't going to be the president. Okay.
It's too close.
Yeah.
The numbers were too close.
Yeah, well, wait till you see what I got to show you. I'll summarize the 2024 election for you here in just a minute. I think you're going to be surprised. Most people don't look at the numbers, they listen to the media, and you're being lied to even by the conservative media about what really happened in that election. And we're just basically being set up to lose in 2026. All over again, just like Trump lost in 2018. He started with a bigger majority, remember, in the House in 2016 than he has now. He's just barely eked out a slight majority, and a lot of those guys aren't even real conservatives. So we got a serious issue ahead. But anyway, I'm rambling. So anyway, we asked the president, and I understand his priorities. If I was the president, I would do the same thing as, I'm not the president, but if I were, first thing I'd do is secure the border. Duh. Okay, and so he did that. Next thing I do is drain the swamp. Why? Because everything else you do is going to be affected by the swamp. So his priorities, I think, are good. I want him to fix the elections, right? Except he can't, really. Let me back off for a second. So the president, man, look at this, right? This guy came out of the gate running, man. He's like, executive orders every day. It's like actually fun to follow what he's doing, isn't it? And it's like every day there's beautiful things happening. Except everything he's doing can be undone by the next administration. Everything that he does is by executive order. That's not the way our country is supposed to be running. Our country is supposed to be run from the bottom up. We're a representative democracy. These people are supposed to be doing our will. They work for us. But the system's become so corrupt that now we need this guy to come in with his wrecking ball and just kind of tear it all down. And so I love watching that happen. But anyway, one of our requests was that he would get Tina Peters out, and he gave the order, which is why I don't know if you noticed that 3 days ago, or 4 days, it's longer than that, maybe a week ago, I lose track of time. Several days ago, the Department of Justice announced that they're doing an investigation into her case. It's in national news, that they're going to bring her out. You remember Tina Peters was the first clerk I ever met with in April of 2021. She has the same Dominion machines that they had in Lake County. We brought in a white hat hacker. We showed the whole thing was all connected and hackable and everything. And we made forensic images of her machines so that we could study them. And those forensic images turned out to be really important for our national investigation because we learned all the passwords and all the good stuff that was there. And we used that, but the Secretary of State panicked, Griswold. She panicked, and they had a federal case against her, and they sentenced her to 9 years in prison. So she's right now in jail. 70-year-old woman who's a Gold Star mom is in prison. And it's not, she's such a danger to society. But anyway, so Trump's well aware of the situation, and he's ordered that. So if you notice, if you listened to his speech the other night, he's really focused on national security and pain. He's like he let the J6ers out. And, he's addressing the injustices first. And I think I agree with those priorities. But he has assigned, I'm just not going to say, he's assigned some people, just like he assigned Elon to the Doge stuff. He's assigned 2 of the cabinet members to work on the elections, and I've been approached. I'm going to be serving on a task force. And that's and I remember when they were talking to me, I said, no one in the country knows voter rolls better than me. I said, if you want, I can go into every state and we can rip this thing wide open, and we need to. So I'm very excited about that. So when that stuff starts happening, but I was just on the phone with him 2 days ago, and this is relevant. This will maybe get me back on my slide deck. They're going to prioritize COVID over the election. That's ahead. In other words, Trump wants to address the injustices and the encroachments on our liberty that happened during COVID first. And he gets to set the priorities. And I think he's thinking the elections are further off anyway, and so he's prioritizing that. So I'm number 2, okay? But as soon as that gets going, something tells me he's not a serial executor. He's not going to do things one after another. He's just getting them started one after another. And so they'll be happening in parallel. So I don't know when that's going to happen or how it's going to happen, but we're going to have some interesting times coming ahead as we expose things. What about like the Epstein files, right? I mean, when that stuff comes out, holy mackerel, that's going to expose. I'll tell you that, just why I'm on that topic. Boy, I'm going down every rabbit trail here. Okay. Something else happened to me last year. I was sitting with a pastor in Central California, and he told me this story. Because I've been traveling the country, and because I've been traveling the country, I've come into direct contact with human trafficking and child trafficking in ways I had no idea. I had no idea we were in this situation as a country. And I just want to tell you this one story, because it's very moving, and it will shock you out of your rosy view of our world. And what happened is I was sitting here having lunch with him and told him about an experience I had in South Carolina with there were several brothels that we came in contact with human trafficking in them. And he goes, yeah, we have that here too. He says, one of my parishioners 15 years ago was in getting counseling. He was very disturbed. He had been trafficked as a child on a barge out in the San Francisco Bay. And he's all messed up in the head. He wants to murder his parents. And he came in for counseling, and I'm trying to help with this. And that's the first story. And then he said, so I was telling this story to one of these Navy SEALs. You know, there are these teams of Navy SEALs that travel around the country rescuing child trafficked kids. Yeah. And it's a big church. They had one in for a speaker. And he was sharing that experience. And the Navy SEAL said to him, oh, so you had a parishioner. Where was he being trafficked? And he's, oh, it's this barge in between Oakland and San Francisco. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I'll look into that. The very next day, that Navy SEAL called Pastor Dave and said, 807 children, thank you for the tip you gave us yesterday. 807 children. And Dave said, what happened? What about the criminals? And the SEAL said, there were no survivors.
Yes.
So, a couple of days go by, and Child Protective Services calls Dave and says, we understand that you've taken custody of 807 children. And Dave says, no, I don't know what you're talking about, because he didn't know what happened to him or anything like that. And so that's what he said. And a few days later, the SEAL calls him and says, we got a problem, Pastor Dave. We have 807 children on a Navy base. And these are like disturbed kids. They've been abused. They need special care. They need a special environment. We can't keep them here. What are we going to do with them? Dave said, we'll take them all. And they're kind of a prepper church. They've got 400 acres. They've got orchards and crops and cattle and all that. And so they started setting up the tents. They were going to take all the kids. But unfortunately, the next day, the Child Protective Services found them on the base and took them. So now they're gone. Nobody knows where those 807 kids are. Okay, that made Dave's church start this thing called peaceofheaven.life. They're buying, it was a former women's penitentiary kind of prison thing. But it doesn't look like a prison. It's like a huge compound. They're buying it, and they're going to turn it into a K-12 boarding school for child trafficked kids around the country. So if you want to support something, I give them $100 a month. I went on and signed up out of my own pocket. Peaceofheaven.life. They're awesome. I'm going to be speaking at one of their big events. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's not just our elections. The Epstein files reveal corruption all the way up into our most senior leadership in our country, child trafficking all the way up into the senior leadership in our country. So here I started out 4 years ago thinking I was going to save our country by fixing our elections. And what did I discover? I discovered we're rotten to the core. We got a huge amount of corruption that I had no idea existed. So that's what I think is really going to be happening in the next several months. Is all this stuff is just going to start coming out. Yeah. Now I learned a lesson. And I learned this lesson from Ken Paxton, the Secretary of State, Attorney General of Texas. He said, when they have something on you, he was describing how there were different lawsuits going on, When they have something on you in a senior position, they don't prosecute you. They don't expose it. And the reason they don't is because now you're controllable. Which is not the way we think. We think, hang the guy, right? Okay? But they don't. They don't, seldom do that. So I think that's what's happening right now. Instead of them like bringing out all these child molester people and they're like working it, you know, okay, you're going to turn on him, you're going to turn on him. They use it as, I think that's the kind of stuff that's going to go on, and I think that's going to happen in our elections too, all around the country. So anyway, that's kind of a messy thing to say, but that was a big lesson for me. I had no idea our country was living that. So there you go. All right, boy, did I ramble on. Let me tell you what I was going to say at this talk, and then maybe I can get back on track.
We'd like to track your
So anyway, I think you guys know my heart now, and you know what my life has been like. I've spent 27 out of 30 days of every month for the last 4 years on the road. Tomorrow I leave for Oregon. I'll be there for a week, and then a week in California, and then I'll be home for 3 days, and then back on the road. I'm booked now for 3 months straight, and people are getting me out there. What am I doing? I promise. I'm going to describe that. I'm going to tell you what that is here in a minute. But I need to give you a little context so you understand. So anyway, introduction, local context, a little history lesson. I guess the history lesson is, I started out in 2021 thinking I was going to fix the election with evidence. So did Mr. Lindell.
Yeah.
He even made documentary, absolutely 9-0. As soon as we show this to the Supreme Court, then it's going to be over, you know. They'll overturn the election. All of us were thinking that all we needed was evidence, because we think like people, not like politicians, right? So anyway, that's what we thought. And it was I think by the end of 2021, when they rejected the Supreme Court case. Did I tell you that story last year?
Yeah.
Did I tell you that one? How many want to hear the Supreme Court? Okay, I'll tell you. Okay, so what happened was Mr. Lindell and I were flying around the country in his jet. It's very fun. Zip, zip, zip. And every day we were in a new state, and we were meeting with the AG each day. And there were 4 of us. It was Mr. Lindell, me, Kurt Olson, our attorney, and I can't say his name, our licensed white hat hacker. And we would sit in the office with the AG. Mike would give the pitch of what we were doing. The attorney would review the Supreme Court brief, because you know they talk all kinds of legalese, and that's not my thing. They would do that, and then I would summarize the fraud we'd found in that state so far, and the avenues of attack and whatnot. And then our 4th person would hack into their election right in front of their face. And we were going state by state, meeting with AG after AG, getting signatures, because we wanted to take this Supreme Court case to the Supreme Court in November of 2021 and have them overturn the election. That was our goal. So long story short, after weeks of that work, we had 6 signatures. That's all we could get. And the guys were weak-kneed as it was. They were barely holding on to our 6 signatures. And that's this long story I don't have to get into. So it's the week before Thanksgiving 2021, and you know Mike, he's a marketer. He likes to yell. Everybody thinks he talks loud because he's a salesman. He has hearing loss. He can't hear unless he talks loud. That's why he talks, hey, yes, you know, we're going to save it, absolutely 9-0, you know, because he can't hear himself otherwise, right? So he talks loud. But anyway, so of course, Thursday and Friday night before Thanksgiving, the week before Thanksgiving, he's out there on all the airwaves telling everybody, yeah, we got the signatures. It's going to be absolutely 9-0 once we get this evidence presented to the Supreme Court and all this. You know, that's the way Mike's talking. Well, over the weekend, the head of the RNC, Ronna McDaniels, called every one of those 6 and told them if they stayed on the case, they would lose all national support from the Republican Party. Okay? That was a huge eye-opener for me. Because I assumed Republicans good, Democrats bad. Republicans would want to fix the election because their guy lost. No, and that is not the case. And I don't even like the words Republican and Democrat anymore. They don't even mean what they used to mean. I like conservative, you know, or left. You know, I don't care what your label is. If you're conservative, you know. You care about the right values. So anyway, that's the history lesson. It took me most of the year to kind of learn that lesson, to break myself out of the mode of thinking that all I had to do was meet with the leaders and we could save the day. So then, starting in 2022, I started meeting with grassroots teams all around the country. And lots of people were doing lots of different things, just kind of like I met with Scott the other day. Lots of people are doing different things. And At that time, the main idea was they were going to prove that there was fraud in the election, make a big report, and turn it in.
Yay!
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
About a dozen states did that, and I read those reports. And anybody here, did it do anything? No, because I met with them in person. We hacked into the elections right in front of them. Nothing happens when you bring evidence to them.
We learned something.
Yeah, we learned something. So I'll give Scott that one. Yes, we learned that that's ineffective. And Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So I quickly learned that this strategy is not working. And why is it not working? And so I just figured, well, maybe we don't have the right evidence. Maybe we don't have the right people. So we started tinkering around. I like to joke about it. I made 73 mistakes early on there. And so was everybody else. But few people were being successful. And then along came JBS. And they said, we love what you're doing going around the country, Dr. Frank, teaching all these people about election. We want you to do that at our chapters. And would you please make a trifold explaining what it is you're doing to save our elections? And so I took about a month, because I was on the road, but sitting in airplanes and thinking about it. I just said, what is working and what is not? And I just, I kind of did one of those, divide the sheet in two. These are the things that are working, these are the things that are not working. And I organized what was working into a strategy, and I started deploying that strategy around the country. And boy, oh boy, does it work. It doesn't work because I'm so smart. It works because people are engaging and re-engaging their civic obligations and becoming the government again. We, the people, are the government. We just forgot. We're letting other people teach our children. We're letting other people run our government. We're letting other people run our elections. It's your election. Go ahead, go down and knock on your county clerk's door and say, I'd like to look inside that machine. What are they going to tell you? Okay, it's your election. But they're keeping you out. Wait a minute, don't they work for you? Oh, see what's happened? We're upside down. And Stalin said it doesn't matter who casts the votes, what matters is who counts the votes. Are you counting your own votes? No. Then you have nothing. Because this country is an experiment in self-government. It's your voice that's supposed to be telling them what to do, and they've taken that away from you because they're counting your votes. So that's why, and JBS milded it, tempered my title a little bit. This is my version. Yes, it says, taking back our elections.
That one's better.
They say, restore local elections. Okay, that's just because they're old. I'm young and revolutionary. Okay? We have to take back our elections. That's what we have to do. Until we do that, we have nothing. Okay, and we have to think of it like we're in a war, because then we'll act like we're in a war and we'll take appropriate action. And it doesn't have to be a shooting war. It's a fifth generation war. But we need to fight it like that. And what's been happening, and I'm not saying that people are bad. I made the same mistakes at first too, where it's like we're all a bunch of individuals running out there trying to be vigilantes and save the country. Wrong. When you're in war, you form a war council. You organize, you study the enemy, you make strategy, you implement strategy. That's how you win. You lose when you fight just by yourself. And that's the problem. So that's why in my 7 steps, the first step is you get connected, and that's so that you can get access to resources. Like we have all kinds of resources, we help people around the country. And step 2 is get organized. And when I wrote this, I wasn't thinking of the war analogy quite completely at that point yet. But really what I'm saying is form a war council and start fighting it that way. And that's what we've been doing. So anyway, that's the history lesson. And boy, I covered some other material at the same time too. I'm pretty efficient, that's good. All right, so yeah, I've been now in 48 states. The only 2 states is Mississippi and Hawaii. I spent 3 trips in Alaska last year. In fact, 3 nights ago, they don't have counties, they have boroughs. The borough assembly voted out their diminished machines 3 nights ago, okay? How did they do that? Because we built a local team, and we organized. And I mean this in the sweetest way. There's always these beautiful ladies, they're already retired, they're kind of retirement age, and they go to all the council meetings and they yell at the councilman. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Are you one of them? Beautiful ladies, and there's some in every county, and they're all doing that. And how's that working?
They don't appreciate me.
They don't appreciate you, exactly. So the difference is you can organize it, you can be the general, but you won't be successful until there are 50 people with you. And those 50 people are the ones talking at the mic, not you. And you're just back there pulling the strings. So you be the general, and you set up it, and that is, now you're fighting warfare, right? But the reason that you're in that mode, and I'm not picking on you because I was in the same mode, is because we all think, gee, if we just show them the evidence, if we just make the argument, of course it's obvious, they'll do the right thing. And that's not the real world, is it? All right, so anyway, I've 800 counties, 48 states. They call me the Johnny Appleseed of election. I like that. And early on I got connected to Trump, which was awesome. I got to speak at his rally, his first rally in Wellington. That was up here in northern Ohio. Trump asked me, he said, I want you to explain to the world how our elections are being stolen. And I got to do that on national TV. So suddenly, Mr. Liddell made movies about me. I got to speak on, national TV. Suddenly, everybody was around the country knows who this guy is. I've been doing nothing since. I don't charge for any of my work. People say, how do you do that? And I'm not rich. I had a decent career. I've just been spending my retirement. And my wife works, and so my kids are grown. There are other people that are like me, kind of travel around, like Dave Clements and Seth Keshel. Dave has away for months at a time sometimes, but I'm fighting the war, and then I get to come home on leave, right?
I mean, kids are going to war.
Yeah, that's the way it feels. So anyway, I've been. I wouldn't say that Mr. Trump and I are on close terms or anything, but I'm one step away because I can talk to Mike in a second, and Mike and he are buddies and they golf and they hang out at Mar-a-Lago together. So you get the idea. A lot of you met me because of the Post Oppressor in the early days. Remember, I was the one that got Amy fired. Because I'm a data guy. I was one of the first 300 people on the internet, right? My MO is I like downloading data and analyzing it and doing something with it. And I was modeling COVID all over the world and in every county in America. And in April of 2020, right in the middle of the epidemic, Ohio started behaving different than every other place in the country. It was weird. It's like my models were working perfectly. I could predict how many people were going to die in every county every week in the country. Down to like the one sometimes. It was scary because differential equations are powerful. So I was doing all this work and Ohio suddenly started not behaving right. I'm like, wait a minute. How come I cannot predict everywhere else but my own state I can't even predict? What's up with this? So I started going behind the website, the Ohio State website, where the State of Ohio website, not Ohio State, the State of Ohio website, where they had all the data and they were showing us the COVID stats every week. And I found out what their source data were. I started downloading their source data and tracking it, and it only took me about a month to figure out what they were doing. They were going back months and months in the past, reclassifying the deaths as COVID deaths and reporting them that week. Okay? And so they were trying to keep the numbers high, even though the epidemic was essentially over. And so they were deliberately inflating the numbers. So you remember Jack Windsor? So I was feeding him the questions, and we set Amy up over 3 weeks of press conferences. And then we caught her and made her lie in public, and then we exposed that and they fired her. She's running for governor now. So we'll just have to bring all that stuff out again, won't we? Okay? All right? The other person who's running for governor, I'm sorry to say, is Vivek.
Yes.
And I thought I liked this guy. So I took Nellie with me, my daughter, my Down syndrome daughter, to his announcement in Butler County a couple weeks ago. He didn't say one word about elections. In fact, the person who introduced him was Frank LaRose. He's teamed up with Frank LaRose. So I thought I was going to like this guy. Okay? He didn't say one thing about abortion. Issue 1 was huge for us in this state. He didn't say one word about it. Okay? So in other words, he's playing the political game. And you know he got kicked off Doge, right?
Yeah, why?
Why did you know that?
I know the inside. Okay, I got to hang out with those guys when I was at CPAC. He was kicked out, okay, because he didn't want to take the aggressive approach that President Trump and Elon are doing, okay? He wanted a more placid kind of approach, a smoother. And dude, Trump's in there with a wrecking ball and the machete. So I'm kind of disappointed because I was really thinking, dude, this is it. We need somebody who's not grown up. And why is Trump so effective? Trump is effective because he didn't come up through the system. He's not contaminated by the swamp, and he can't be bought. He doesn't need our money, right? He's from outside, and he's just going to come in and, burn the house down. That's what he's doing, okay? Everybody who comes up through the system, So I was a little mad at him when he had J.D. Vance become our senator, because I happened to be in the room when they were doing that up in Delaware County that day. Remember that big rally? And that's when Trump came in and endorsed J.D. Vance instead of Josh Mandel, who I had already spoken to the president a year earlier and was going to endorse Josh Mandel. But anyway, it was all part of this longer-term strategy to make him buy. He's buds with Don Jr. So anyway, I'm rambling now. Okay. So anyway, the whole COVID thing, I think that's going to be the next. That's going to be the next. I think after he finishes the sprinkler. So he's busy with sprinkler. All right.
What's the one on the right?
I could go on and on, but I think I need to move on because I'm already taking way too long. All right. So I told my planners I wanted to take a month off after the election to analyze the election and to not be on the road because I needed to be able to do that. And I did that, and I think everybody just kind of breathed a big sigh of relief, and so I didn't travel in January either. So I caught up on a lot of stuff. I've been making videos and posting them online, so anything you want to know more details, go to my website. I did an experiment. I started a YouTube page because my last YouTube page was taken down the month before the election in 2020. And so I wanted to see if it would survive. And it's like I get 100,000 views a week and stuff. Maybe they're afraid now. And so it was kind of an experiment. I could sit around and complain, but I thought I'd try it. So try it. Go to my YouTube. What's next? I've got a short video, what we need to do next. I got a whole video on how to audit our voter rolls. I have a whole video on how Tina Peters, the whole situation got started with that. I talked about CPAC. I have another video talking about that. By the way, before I get into the data, let me just tell you what Mr. Lindell is doing nowadays. He basically put everything on the line. He's $40 million in the hole personally. He started out $30 million ahead personally. When I first met him in March of 2021, he said, I have $30,000 liquid in the bank. I'm going to spend it all on election integrity. I either spend it now or they're going to take it away from me later anyway. And so he was spending money like crazy. But remember, he was thinking it was going to be 6 months till we had the elections fixed. Okay. And so then all those lawsuits are up against him and everything. So he's had to trim back substantially. He's got a new TV channel. It's called Lindell TV. It's on lindelltv.com. And he has 3 White House correspondents. So when you hear the White House press briefings, 3 people in that room he's paid by Mr. Lindell, and they get to ask questions and everything. So that's cool. And while I was at CPAC, they did an interview with me as well. That's up there if you want to see it. So that's one thing Mike's doing. Another thing he's doing is called Vocal, VOCL. It's Vocal Social. It's outperforming Truth right now. The President Trump's former social media platform. So it's Vocal. I've got something like 32,000 followers on there. He's wanting to communicate on that and do election integrity stuff on that. The other thing he's got the Election Crime Bureau. That's basically a network of people who report crimes happening around the country into one central clearinghouse. He's been doing that. It's electioncrimebureau.com. And then the last thing is Cause America. Did I not put up, the Lindell Offense Fund?
No.
I should have put that up. That's a mistake. I've got new slides. Gotta make a note. Lindell Offense Fund. So if you want to help Mike, you can go lindaleoffensefund.org, donate, or you can go to mypillow.com and buy stuff. If you go to mypillow.com and buy stuff, use my promo code, and there's a reason. And my promo code is easy to remember, DR Frank, Dr. Frank, DRFRANK. The reason is because I've set up my promo code that every dime that I would normally get, it's a 25% commission, automatically goes back into the Lindale Offense Fund. So if you're going to buy stuff to help him, use my code because it gets all of it. Okay? You see what I'm talking about? Yeah. I mean, if you like supporting War Room, use the War Room code. You know, to get, but then you'll be 25% goes to them. So I'm just telling you what to do. Anyway, so Cause America is a great organization. The network that I use across the country of working, all the teams are networked, and I've been training teams all around the country using the resources. Mike has a paid staff working for this, providing the support we use. Anyway, I have to get into that. So anyway, my offer is, if you start building a local team, we'll coach you. And I'm free, so, and Scott knows. I'm happy to help you. And if you want to get on a team, I think he's passing around your clipboard, and you can help out. And basically what I'm doing is teaching people how to do the 7 steps locally, and if you build that team, I will come. So, let's see. All right. It's a dumb joke, I know. All right. All right. I think I've already done way more introductory than I meant to do. So how about, let's talk about the 2024 election. Unless you have a question at this point, you want me to? Yeah.
Dr. Frank, I have a response from a lady called Jennifer Hutchison, who's with Frank LaRosa's office. Her title is Director of Consultant Services. And I asked her about election integrity, and I told her about Mr. Lindell's claims suggesting widespread criminal activity at the local, state, national level. And her response to me was, our office has asked Mr. Lindell to present concrete evidence specific to Ohio. At this time, no evidence has been presented, and that was February 14th of this year.
What did I just tell you? That we hacked into Lake County and documented the whole thing and gave it to his office.
We'll do it again.
Do it again.
Well, do you know this Jennifer Hutchison? 'Cause
I know
I'm
who
gonna
she
tell her
is.
that.
I know who she is.
Okay.
I mean, didn't they just admit by the newspaper articles? Right? So, when she says no evidence, that's not the truth. Right? When I showed that the statistics proving that they couldn't be real, that's evidence. And Mr. Lindell made a movie about my stuff. It's called Scientific Proof. It's a 1-hour documentary. So, Mr. Lindell, through me, has given him and we gave him an opportunity to be a hero. So,
Hey, Dr. Frank, so what does it take to get the county to change the voting procedure, to purge the voting rolls and start over again?
That's a good question.
takes a team.
All right, but who has the authority, I guess is my question.
Who has the authority in our country?
The citizens.
Thank you. They work for you. When you go to your local county offices, you don't ask permission.
You tell them to fucking do it.
I wouldn't use those language, but I think that's dead on right, okay? They work for us, and if they don't do what we say, we fire them. And we have recall laws in this state. Get going. You need to take back control of your election. Now, if you go, I'm not following my slides all of a sudden, but it's okay, I'll divert just for a moment. If you go to your local clerk and say, we don't trust the machines, we want you to get rid of them, what's she going to tell you?
Not
The
my
Secretary of
job.
State tells me they're totally safe, and the Clerks Association tells me that they're totally safe, and Dominion promises, and ES&S promises that they're all good, so go jump in the lake. That's what she's going to tell you, right? If you show up with 100 people who say, we've been knocking on doors, and we can prove that there's fraud in our election because you're using this system, that's a completely different starting point, isn't it? So, I'll just go ahead and read step 5. It says, success in this effort begins with unassailable evidence of local fraud obtained by your team. That's the first sentence, okay? So you have to find the harm. If you're just showing dirty voter rolls, they can say, oh, okay, our rolls are a really big deal with this. We have incompetent people. We'll buy better software, whatever, right? But if you can say, look at the rolls are dirty, and because they're dirty, see the fraud that happened, see the harm that happened. And every one of those fraudulent ballots is nullifying one of your citizens' real ballot. That's compromising your constitutional rights. That's an issue. That's a serious issue. I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question. I'm just giving you broad strokes because there are more nuances. Who's responsible for the integrity of the election in your county? Who's legally accountable for that?
Board of Elections.
The Board of Elections is legally accountable. If you ask them, they'll tell you the state. And if you ask the state, they'll tell you the county. Okay? Legally, it's the county. And so what you're going to do, in short, is you're going to find fraud and illegal voting in your own county. And you're going to go to your county leaders, and you're going to say, according to state law, and you would have to, I guess you'd have to have read your own state law, huh? Okay? You government officials, okay? You'd have to read it. According to state law, it says you're accountable. Well, we're going to hold you accountable for every one of these cases. And these are felonies. These are felony fraud cases. It's like this is going to add up to thousands of years in prison for you. Okay? We're going to hold you accountable for this. And they're going to say, it's not my fault, it's not my fault, it's the state's fault, it's the state. It's that Mr. LaRose forcing us to use this system. That's the problem. That's what they're going to say. And so you're going to say, okay, we have a choice. You can either comply with our demands because there's fraud here and it's violating our constitutional rights, or you can listen to LaRose, in which case we're not going to wait for the next election. We're going to recall you immediately. We're going to picket you at your house. We're going to picket you when you go to the grocery store. We're going to meet you when you drop your kids off at the primary school. We're going to make your life hell because we can. Do you know that public officials cannot get restraining orders against citizens? This is warfare. We get clerks to quit all over the country this way, okay? But you have to be serious, right? This isn't casual, oh, pretty please, won't you please do what we ask? No, you take them on. It's war, baby. Yeah.
You better have somebody ready to run against them.
Okay.
Or for their seat.
So that is, yes. Here's the biggest problem we have. We've been out of government for so long, we don't know what we're doing. Okay, and so we throw these people out, and then everybody goes, well, who's going to be next? And everybody goes, duh. We don't have anybody. We have a shallow bench. We have a shallow bench, and with very little experience, because we've been out of government for so long, we don't know what we're doing. Okay, so that's another reason we form a team. We need to get educated. We need to train. We have army bases, right? We train our soldiers. We don't just send untrained soldiers into battle. What's wrong with us? See why you need to change your mindset. You need to think in a new way. When you take it, I learned this lesson in Nebraska. In Nebraska in 2021 and 2022, we were traveling the state, filling all the vacancies in the precincts. You know, the party likes it that there are all these vacancies in the Republican Party at the precinct level because it keeps a few people in control of the party. They like that. They don't tell everybody to fill all the precinct vacancies. They like that. So we went through Nebraska, and in one election, we surprised them. The day all the applications were due, we filled every one of those vacancies in Nebraska, and we took over the Republican Party in Nebraska in one fell swoop. It was awesome, okay? And we thought, woohoo, we won. Now suddenly we had a whole bunch of people in charge of the party, and they all looked at each other. It's like, now what do we do? Nobody knew what to do. And we were so focused on making that happen that we hadn't even thought about we need to train and we need to prepare. And within a year, the establishment Republicans had taken back control of the party again. So there's a lot of lessons. And so we've had to kind of learn, if you get ahead of yourself, they're like false starts. And there's a gal in Southern Kentucky, her name's Ellen Aldridge. She's been coaching the teams all across Kentucky. They've been taking over the party down there by training them, and they learn Robert's Rules of Order, and they read the bylaws in every county, and they use the bylaws and the rules against the county leaders, and they take over the counties. It's awesome. So you need to know what you're doing. You need to read the rules. You need to know what you're doing. Anyway, I was rambling on, but I was going to talk about all this stuff anyway, just in a different order. Yeah.
So the fraud that we need to present to the county elector, how do we do that? Where do we get that?
Now let me correct you, and I mean this in a good way.
Sure.
You're not presenting it to your county officials. You're the government.
We're demanding
Take out a newspaper article. Tell the community all the fraud that happened in the election. Name names, addresses. Name names. Have public events. Get on the radio. I did 2 radio interviews today. Get on the radio and expose the fraud to your people. You're going to win in the court of public opinion.
Where do we find that fraud? That was my question.
How do you get that fraud?
Yes.
Okay, so
How?
step 2, form a team. One of the people on that team is a data person, like Scott, and I was working with Scott 3 weeks ago, teaching him how to do that. There are lots of ways to do it, and fortunately or unfortunately for us, it's easy to find a lot of fraud most everywhere you look. And I'll get on that. Let me jump to some data here for a minute. Jump to some data. So, because I'm going to answer your question, but I was going to do this anyway. So this is from 1940 to present, the number of people that are 18 and older in the state of Ohio. So it looks like we've leveled off. We're starting to fade off, or we're level off. Population's leveled off. See it there? Voting age people in our state. The black curve is the number of people in our voter rolls as a state. And back here in the 80s and 90s, our voter rolls were about 60% of our voting age people. That's a healthy voter rolls. All the experts agree that's pretty good. Not everybody wants to be in the rolls, not everybody votes. There's a lot of reasons that not everybody should be in the rolls. What happened here in 1993 is something big happened. NVRA, National Voter Registration Act, motor voter people call it. The federal government started giving money to states to automatically register people to vote. Register them to vote when they get welfare, register them to vote when they go to the DMV, register them to vote in all these different state systems, automatically get put in. So that's why our voter rolls suddenly started surging at that point. Now we're up around 80, close to 90% of our people. If a clean rolls has 60%, but we're at 90%, what does that mean? It means we have a lot of dirt in our rolls. And I know Scott has spent a lot of time in your rolls. It's like...
Actually, it's been our team, not me.
Okay.
I'm just the guy that talks a lot.
But when you look at the roll, the first thing that happens when I give a local team their rolls, their jaws fall open and they're like, dude, these are filthy, dirty rolls everywhere we look. And think about it, and I'll just show you the next graph. If you compare your population trend to who's in the rolls, we got about 25% too many people in the rolls. So just think of it this way, about 1 in 4 of the people don't belong in your voter rolls. Imagine you're a state like Oregon. I was on the phone today with the team in Oregon. They mail a ballot to everybody in their rolls. They have 110% of their people registered. Okay, but a clean rolls is 60%. So imagine all those ballots they're just littering the pavement with ballots. How can they ever have a clean election? Because anybody could just scoop up whatever they need and cheat everything, right? Well, we don't make it that easy in Ohio, except that we make the rolls public, and all you have to do is look up and see who doesn't vote, and you can stuff a ballot for them using their name. And you'd say, well, gee, but don't we have to have a signature? Yeah, but we were in ERIC all those years, and all those signatures are now exposed to the public. And what percent of our ballots are coming in by mail now? Anybody know? How come you don't know? Are you the government or not? If you were the government, you would know. In 2020, 56% of our ballots went in by mail. 56%. In 2022, 37%. Okay? So, in other words, 1 in 3 ballots, round numbers, are coming in by mail. And we're getting lazy now. Oh, it's so convenient. Yeah, okay. So we're just giving, and then, I wasn't going to get on this tonight. All the talk about the Republican Party is what? Vote early. You know why they like that? They save money. Because then they don't have to send you a postcard because they know you already voted. If you ask them, why do you want people to vote early? They will tell you that to their face. Okay? And it doesn't help. All you're doing is telling the bad guys how many ballots to stuff.
Thank you.
You're giving away all of the information. You're telling the enemy where you're going to attack and with what arms, and they know how to counter. It's a stupid strategy.
Amen.
I could go into that, but I was just going to avoid it. Okay. Anyway, you get the idea. Now, I did Vandalia, too. So here's Vandalia. You guys are Montgomery County, sorry. You guys are like shrinking as a county. It's pretty steady since 1980. Here are your voter rolls. And it looks like you've always had pretty dirty voter rolls, especially after NVRA. But it looks like it shot up. Wait a minute, Scott, I thought you said you were cleaning the voter rolls.
Well, they're ignoring us.
Oh.
We're doing the thing that doesn't work so far. We want to change
I'm
it.
being playful with Scott. He knows that we've already had this discussion.
Huh.
This is a hamster wheel, folks. People all around the country are saying they're cleaning the voter rolls. So I just simply say, show me them. How clean did they get? Nothing happens. In cases like in Los Angeles, they had to remove 1.2 million people from the voter rolls after Judicial Watch sued them. Within 1 month, they were completely full again with new non-real voters. Okay? The problem isn't that the rolls are dirty. The problem is that you're not in control of the voter rolls. So I always tell people it's like cleaning your kid's room. You can spend all day cleaning your kid's room, but it's not an effective strategy because you're not in control of your kid's room, right? You could spend all day. The only way to keep your kid's room clean is to lock the door. And then you can keep the kid out, right? So you need to download a copy of your voter rolls, and you need to keep the state out of your voter rolls. That's local control of your voter rolls. And then you can say, oh, but the state requires us to keep the voter rolls. There is nothing stopping you from right now downloading the voter rolls for your county and start to control your own rolls. Every week when the state says, well, we want you to add these people, you can filter every one of them and add them to your copy of your voter rolls. What's stopping you from doing that? Oh, but that's a lot of work, Dr. Frank. Yeah, that's the way we used to do it. We had parties. We had precinct books. Who was in charge of them? The parties would go out and knock on the doors and make sure that the precinct books were complete. We used to do that. And we got lazy and we let other people do it. Now it's controlled by somebody over in Columbus, and look what's happened to us. We need to get back to doing our civic duties, our civic responsibilities. We need to, and that's all we have to do. So anyway, what are we looking for? We're not auditing the ballots of the machines. And I have a whole talk on this, but I'm not going to go into it. A lot of people want to attack the machines. Already been doing that. You don't get anywhere that way because even when you get it in court, you never get anything with that. And trying to clean the rolls doesn't work either. But you need to audit the voters. You can audit the voters. And what I always tell people is, it doesn't matter how many times you count the cash in the register. What matters is how many of the bills are counterfeit. Okay? You can audit the rolls, and it says every person who voted in your rolls. So guess what? You can audit the voters. You have access to that. So all you have to do is have a way of looking through the rolls and finding some people, and Scott was telling me about 60 of them that he found the other day in your county. You have to find people that there's something wrong with this. This doesn't line up. This person shouldn't be voting. They're an illegal alien, or they've been dead 10 years, and how come we're having ballots coming from this person? So you find that, you investigate. You're not going to take it to your sheriff. You're not asking your sheriff to investigate. You investigate. And when you find the fraud, you make your own case. You're not making the case because we're bringing it to the authorities so they can act upon it. You're making the case so that you can act upon it because you're the government. You just forgot. We're upside down, right? It's a change in mind. You have to think differently than you used to. And once you start doing that, you take over the county. So, Tom asked me to remind you guys about Shasta County. So in January of 2023, we started in 2021. We found 350 cases of fraud in Shasta County, Northern California, 75,000 voters. 350 cases of fraud. We started a public movement, and it's very successful. We replaced several of the commissioners and took over the leadership of the county. And in January of 2023, we voted out all the machines. In February and March, we got rid of all the electronic poll books. And it was an ongoing war, and the state of California was so freaked out about it that they launched, the state paid for a recall election of one of the commissioners to try to take back the majority from us, which we barely survived by 90 votes. But we only survived by 90 votes because we had hundreds and hundreds of volunteers watching every aspect of the process, every detail. We supervised and we kept control of everything, if that makes sense. And we had launched a war against the county clerk who was undermining all of our moves, collaborating with the Secretary of State. So we launched a movement against her. Her name is Kathy Darling. I wrote a song about her. Kathy Darling, Kathy darling, Shasta County ROV. We wrote 4 stanzas, and we'd carry signs, and we'd march around the election building singing that. And pretty soon, everybody was singing it in town. It became a brainworm, right? Okay. This is how you win, right? Okay. She went in February of 2024. She went out on medical leave for anxiety and depression. Okay. And in March of 2024, the county commissioners fired her and hired a new one. Okay. This is war, okay? I'm a nice guy, I promise. I'm a sweetheart. You want to hug me afterwards? We can hug, okay? But in war, you take out the enemy, okay? And that's what we did. It was very fun, but well, actually, it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
So the county commissioners you had already had in place, the right ones, so when she was ousted, that.
We had to get them in place. It took us a year and a half.
Right, so you had that in place before this situation, so they voted on the right person to come.
Yes, your enemy doesn't just go, oh, you win, okay, I give up.
Right.
They have another, so we take 2
Right.
steps forward, then 1 step back. And so, even 2 days ago, I was on the phone with Shasta County. It is a game of chess. It is constant strategy. They're not just going to give up the power they've amassed over decades just because we won 1 battle or 2. So it's a big deal. It's an ongoing war. But we have to wake up to that. Yes, sir.
The people who are pulling the strings, they obviously have white and black on these people. How do we go about obtaining proper white and black men on these people that foresees that of the people who are controlling them?
It's different everywhere you go, right? There are nuances in every county, which is why every game of chess is different. Every county is different. You need a team in every county, and one of the people on your team is a strategist. And the strategist is not the person who's doing the work. The strategist is the one who's standing back going, what's this? I'm going to connect those dots. You need somebody not working. Scott was telling me the other day, he loves doing data. He's leading the election integrity team. He says, I can't do all these jobs. You're right. You'll lose if you're doing all the jobs. A general doesn't fight the war. You have to have a war council in an army. So that's why you've got to build a team. If you're going to fight it seriously, that's how you do it.
I got an example to his question.
Sure.
So here's
I'll take a drink while you do that. And then
here's a quick little example. I've noticed that our director has a certain vocal pattern when he's going after someone. And I got thinking, you can go through all the videos and make a little video of every time he attacked a citizen and said, is this the leadership we want in our county? But I've been resistant to doing that, but that is a lot of stuff you could use to simply destroy the credibility.
Warfare, baby.
That's not enough. Well, I'm talking about digging up stuff in their past and things that they have done.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. In Shasta County, one of the 5 commissioners we wanted to get rid of, we did research. We researched the enemy. In war, I remember the movie Patton. In the movie Patton, there's this one scene where he's lying in bed reading a book written by the colonel who's leading the tank brigade the next day. Remember that scene? Okay, he's researching the enemy. So we researched the enemy. We found one of the commissioners was having trouble with his business. He was close to bankruptcy. So we launched a bank boycott of his business in town. Drove him under. Okay. And he resigned. Okay. It's a war.
They do that in Bethel Township, Miami County.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me tell you what happened in the 2024 election. Oh, yes.
When you're checking the rolls, how do you know if that is a legitimate name on there? What's your tip off? Where do you go?
We have lots of databases we cross-reference to do that. And that's a longer story, but I posted a video how to audit your voter rolls, and I give you a lot of clues in that. But I could talk for a whole day on how to do that, okay? So I'm not sure this is the right venue, but it's a good question. Form a team. It's sort of like saying, well, how are we going to fight the war, Dr. Frank? Okay, well, it could be a week of seminars, couldn't it? So
those websites that you gave us, like somewhere in there?
Yes.
To get information?
It's ohiocheckmyvote.org, which actually, we have the software for free. A lot of smart people are actually providing a lot of information. You can simply look for NCOA moves, National Change of Address moves. You can look for addresses where there's a lot of people living there. All the nursing homes pop up. All the universities pop up. Yep. You can look through your own precinct, your precinct captain. You can say, let me learn about my area. And you could actually literally go verify all the registrations in your precinct, which I think is what we used to do it. There is a data mine of information. The problem is we don't have the data analysts to look into it. We don't have the leaders to drive it. We don't have the strategists to strategize it. We don't have the recruiters to recruit the people. We don't have the people
He's
doing
going
the
down the list of
promotion.
everybody on the team.
And
That's
by the
why he's
way,
using these
these are
words.
all the people we and my downfall, which you told me about, is I know how to do too many of these things.
Yes.
And part of a person, what they do is, when you're trying to build a group, you kind of prototype everything.
Yep.
Well, the problem when you start prototyping it, you're
Now
doing
you're
it.
doing everything.
So now you have to give the work you prototyped to someone else, which means you have to teach them what you did.
Yeah.
And when do you take the time to train someone what you did when you're trying to build something? So really, we have been meeting since May of 2024. My first encounter personally was a bunch of us went to the meeting. I explained what we're doing. I was called disingenuous, and it was published across the Capital Journal and used to discredit all individuals. We finally did our first hearing. They rejected everything on a technicality. Went to our next hearing. They questioned my sources. They actually withheld evidence in the hearing. They then
They're playing
said,
in their battlefield.
oh, they are, and we just realized.
You're not going to win in their battlefield.
No, and it's very apparent. But the one thing is, if you keep showing up, you learn stuff, you irritate the heck out of it, you gain momentum. But you have to play the full warfare piece. And by the way, everything we're talking about all requires the same fundamental skills: research, analysis, promotion. All these 7 characteristics are required for any organization that's successful. So that's my little.
That's good. Sign up if you want to be on this team. It's fun. Warfare is fun. I'm going to skip you for now, okay? Because I got to get to these data. Unless you want to be here 3 hours. I would be, but I was born for this. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show you what happened in the 2024 election. It's going to surprise you. It's not what you think. So here's 1980 up to 2024. And this is the number of people who voted for the Republican candidate in each of those elections. So Reagan first time, Reagan the second time, Bush the first time. See what I'm talking about? This is how many votes there were for the Republican candidate in each of those elections. And you notice that the Republican Party is all over the map. Isn't that interesting? The Republican candidate doesn't draw a consistent number of votes.
That means because people win and lose elections.
92,
We're a
96
public,
was,
right?
that other guy.
That was Bush 1. Now, his second term, right? He didn't do too hot. Clinton, one of those two.
It was that businessman that split the Republican Party.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Figures. Okay.
Ross Perot.
Yeah. So you notice that they're all over the map. Okay, now I'm going to show you the Democrats. So here's the number of votes that were for the Democrat candidate in each of those same elections. And if you notice, I put the names on it to help you remember. You'll notice that the Democrats follow a trend, except for 2 exceptions. See the trends they follow? Yep. And then there's also a break in the trend, and that's when we switched to electronic machines in our country. You can see the direct effect of the machines. And not just this, but you can see that that's HAVA, Help America Vote, Act 2002. Okay. If you compare the number of votes to the trend, Obama's first term, he had 7 million more votes than the trend. And Biden had 10 million more than the trend. So I knew these kind of data. And back in March of last year, and I down to the precinct level like this all over the country, just showing you the kind of overall summary so you understand the point. And President Trump got up in one of his speeches and says, oh, we're going to be too big to rig. And we're going to get people registered to vote, and we're going to chase ballots, and we're going to turn out these huge number of people. And I thought, gee, how are we going to compete with 10 million stuffed ballots? How are we going to? And so I did a calculation, and I made it public, and I said, if we do a magnificent job registering voters and chasing ballots and getting those turned in, the most we're going to get is 3% increase. And I made that public, and I told Mr. Lindell, showed him the calculations, he showed the president, and the president shut up about too big to rig for 4 months. Did you notice that? Okay. But then the Republican Party kind of got their tentacles back into him again, and he started saying it again, too big to rig, and TPUSA joined in the fight. And you know how much money TPUSA made selling you voter rolls and software to do this? They made a huge amount of money. I met privately with Scott Pressler in Vegas about a year ago and said, I hate your strategy. This is why. Boom, boom, boom. I don't want you to, most you're going to be able to do is increase 3%, and that's nothing compared to the 10 million. And you're going to be, because you're chasing ballots early and turning in ballots early, you're telegraphing everything ahead of time. I said, if you want to register voters, fine, go ahead and register voters. You want to chase ballots, fine, chase ballots. But turn them in late. Turn them in right at the election or right near the election. I still don't like it, but if you're going to do it, okay? But do it that way. You know what his answer to me was? Dr. Frank, I don't care. They're paying me a ton of money to do this. I'm going to do it. Okay? That was his answer to me, okay? And I kind of lost my respect for him at that point. And I later in the day, I met with Charlie Kirk and gave him my same concerns. They made a ton of money doing that, okay? And now the Republican Party, see, we won, we did a great job. Well, just you wait now, I'm about to show you something. So what actually happened in the election is Trump went up 3%. Oh, ever hear that number before? Okay. They did a magnificent job chasing ballots all around the country. You think, but the most you could get is 3%. I'm going to show you some more. And that's the whole too big to rig thing. What really happened is the Democrats lost 10 million votes.
Right.
Okay? That's what really happened. And so Trump didn't win. The Democrats lost.
Well, how'd they lose their 10 million votes?
How'd they lose 10 million votes?
My gosh, they've all left the country, right?
So let's dig into that just a little bit, huh? Okay? I think it's a miracle, okay? Sorry, you're supposed to be able to hear this. You're supposed to hear this, but my speaker went to sleep. I had it all set up, you heard it. It's better out of his words than mine. His mouth than mine, right? Let's hear what it says. There we go. Looking back. Okay, sound. There it goes. Here we go. Try it again. Sorry.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason. And that reason was to save our country and to restore America to greatness. And now we are going to fulfill that mission together. Many people have told me.
I tried to hit pause. What did he say? Did he say he was going to save the country? He says we were going to do it
Together.
What are you doing? How are you helping? First time he was in office, and I had that recording I could play for you. He said today, remember in his inauguration speech, he said today is a big day. He says because today we're not just transferring power from one party to another or one administration to another, we're transferring power from the government back to the people. That's what he said. Where were we? We were asleep. We were on the. We have to put the mantle of government back on. We have to become the government again. He can't do it by himself. He can't do it by himself. He's a great guy, amazing president. I love him. He's a teddy bear too. He's a good hugger. But we have to take on. Okay, so let me show you. Dive into those numbers a little deeper so you'll understand, because I'm going to show you Ohio too. So you saw this graph. You understand what this graph means. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to do something tricky. So you got to pay attention. So these are the 12 elections from 1980 up to 2024. What I'm going to do is I'm going to squash them. Okay? See what I did? Squashed all 12 of those elections. And the reason I'm going to do that, so the left bar is 1980 and the right bar is 2024. Got it? That's what I did. Squashed it.
Yep.
Because now I'm going to do it for every state. So you'll understand. For each state, you can see how many Republican votes there were in 1980 or in 2024. You can see for every state how many votes there were for the president who was Republican. And I've sorted it from largest state to smallest state, and you'll notice that it's going up. Now, it doesn't control for population, so just because it's going up, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But notice Ohio. We voted less for Trump in 2024 than we did in 2020. We voted less for Trump. Is that what you thought? How many states did it go down? Indiana went down. Red Indiana. Illinois. So that isn't what you think is going on. But that's what happened. We went down. And I got all the states. And you can see tons of them went down.
But we have,
Kansas. I mean, these are places should be going, you think of them as being red. Louisiana. I think I've made my point. Missouri. Think of Missouri. Show me state. West Virginia, the most conservative state in the country, the one that votes for Trump more than any other state in the country. They vote 3-1 for him. The number of votes that went out for him went down. Hawaii, Wyoming. Actually, I said, yeah, West Virginia. Sorry, I said Wyoming, didn't I? Here's Wyoming. They went down too. Most conservative. Alaska. Although I guess he went up in D.C. Good for Trump. Okay.
is that an anomaly?
I don't know, but I've done the same thing for the Democrats, and I'm going to walk you through these data. I just want you to see the country, the raw data, to actually see the actual numbers. Most people never see the numbers. They have percentages.
They're
right?
going down too.
A lot of fraud in California. Wow.
They're actually going down more.
Look how much they went. Look how much the Democrats went down in California. It's like 5 million, 4 million votes they lost. The Democrats did not turn out for Kamala. I don't blame them. Okay. Now, some people say, well, the reason that it's lower, Dr. Frank, is because they couldn't cheat this election. Wrong. I have teams of auditors all over the country who've been exposing a massive amount of cheating in the 2024 election. Let me just give you one simple example. Clark County, Nevada, that's where Las Vegas is. There were 40,000 ballots that had no vote for president on them. It was all down ballot. In this election, in the 2024 election, the turnout was so low for Kamala from the Democrats that even with the cheating, it's still a huge drop in every state. This isn't what you thought, huh? This is not what you thought. Okay, now, and the Democrats even went down in Ohio.
They've been going down for some time.
No, they're not. Well, I guess you could say yes. I guess
Well,
you
yeah,
could say
that
there's a trend there. Maybe you're right. Yeah. But at least it's nice to see the actual data, huh? Then you know you can actually form a real opinion. All right, now, this is just showing you the total number of votes, and the population could be going bigger or the population could be smaller. So that's just the total number of votes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ratio of the Republicans to the Democrats. Because then it doesn't matter whether it's what the population changes. Is it a state becoming more Republican? Is it becoming more Democrat? We'll be able to see in the ratio, yes? Get ready, here we go. Now it's in alphabetical order. And this is one right here, this line. That's when it's an equal ratio between Republicans and Democrats. And so like, take Alabama here. They're becoming more Republican because there's the ratio from Republicans to Democrats getting higher in every election. But in Alaska, it's going down. In Arizona, it's going down. Arkansas up. California down. Colorado down. Connecticut, more downs than ups, huh? In other words, the Republican Party is losing ground almost, 4 out of 5 times. Across the country, the Republican Party is losing ground. The only reason we won, thank God, Tony Shoup in Pennsylvania, she says, God gave us a 2-year reprieve because we're probably going to lose the midterms because the trend is not good, okay? And we're barely eked it out here. So, I've done all the states. Let's get to Ohio. I guess you're on the third panel here. There we go. Here's Ohio. So, the ratio, I would not even doing as well as when Reagan was here. Maybe in the recent years, it looks like there's a slight positive trend for us. But I categorize this as risky. And I tabulated them all, showing the ratio between them. And all the blue states are the ones that are clearly winning, that were won by Democrats. And the reds are the states that are won by Republicans. And what I've done is I've color-coded them, and the number of electoral college votes. I'm showing you the trend numerically, so you can see the trend. And I want you, and if I use the long-term trend all the way back to Reagan, or if I use the shorter-term trend just back to 2000, it's different because, like we said, in Ohio, there's a slight positive trend in more recent years. But long-term from Reagan, we're down. We're less Republican now than we were when Reagan was president. So it depends on how you measure it, you know, where you decide your starting point to be. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to call out the fact that these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 states are all right on the edge. Right, hanging on the edge. And the trend is negative in every one of them. And that's why I think we're going to lose the midterm. Unless God gives us another miracle.
Can you draw any conclusions, Dr. Frank, from this trend?
We're going to lose the midterm.
Well, I mean, is there any rationale behind it?
Yes. They've been indoctrinating our children for decades. And they've been who's in senior government right now? The people from the 70s. 60s and 70s, the sex, drug, and rock and roll generation, the ones without values. So, and they've been taking over our. There is no way that Ohio should have had issue 1 passed.
Amen.
Okay, how did that happen to us? It happened to us because hundreds of millions of dollars flowed, tens of millions of dollars flowed into our state from outside of our state. It wasn't us running our election. It was other people coming into our election, affecting the outcome of our election. And actually, I did a whole video on it. Since Roe v. Wade was overturned, has abortion gone up or down?
Up, actually.
Dramatically up, okay? And we have like 60% of our abortions that are chemical abortions. I did a whole set of graphs. I like to know the numbers. But the reason I bring this graph up is because guess what? You guys are right. I say you guys, but me too. We're right on the edge of the vulnerable states. So of all the states in the country where we're hanging right on the edge, we got to wake up. We got to take back our elections because they're winning it from the bottom up. In 2020, it's true that Trump won by 8.5% in our state, but we lost our 12 most conservative judges that year. How could Trump win in such a large majority and yet we're losing our conservative judges? That's all down ballot manipulation.
Or Soros.
We find tons of cheating at school board races, especially in the spring. Because in the spring, the turnout's way low. And you have all these names in the rolls that nobody's using. It's easy to just scrape up a few and turn in a few, and you can it's typically just 100 ballots decide an election, in a school board election. And in 2006, George Soros said, he started what's called the Secretary of State's project. He said by 2020 he was going to own every Secretary of State in the country. He's nearly done that. Okay, I got one, I think. Chuck Gray. And then in 2009, I think it was, or 10, he said I'm starting the AG project. And in 14, I think he started the Sheriff project. In other words, all this down ballot, they're trying to take over our country from the bottom up. They know how, from the bottom up. And we have to fight from the bottom up. We can't win from the top down. Trump's great, but he's bombing Berlin. We need to occupy. That's what needs to happen. So
Miami County voting, they couldn't decide on the Tiff City School Board. Everything else was done. The same ballots were counted, and they waited and waited and waited and waited, and people won that they wanted.
And they'll just keep, in a lot of these states, they'll just keep counting until they get what they want. So these are the most sensitive states I showed you right in the middle, and look at the trends in each of these states. So it's not a good trend.
Well, on November 15th, when they were doing the count of provisional ballots, the director said, we don't have the count. And because of a courageous board member that said, what do you mean you don't have the count? And then he threw one of his employees under the bus about it. And he finally said, we're not leaving this meeting until you give me the count. And I was told later, well, if they don't have a count of provisional ballots, they can keep adding more.
That's called the denominator. We want to freeze the denominator. As of this point, the total number of ballots can't go up. Now, you can count them however you want, but no more ballots can suddenly appear. That's one of our requests that we've been shooting for. The problem is that requires legislation. I spoke with Patrick Byrne about a year ago in April. Some of you might have been at that meeting. Patrick Byrne and I were the two speakers. And Patrick Byrne said there are a dozen ways to cheat our elections. And and they'll use whichever ones are available. So if you fix the signature verification, you know, that's just one link in the chain, but you've got a dozen ways to cheat. So we have to, in the end, really the only solution is we have to do it. We have to do the work ourselves. We have to have our eyeballs on every step of the process, because there's always going to be a way to cheat as long as it's electronic. All right, I rambled on, but I was trying to show you some of the data from the 2024 election. I think I showed you a lot. Hopefully that should scare you. Okay, we're in trouble, right? I showed you the trends. I did this analysis after the election showing the voting eligible population. What I did is I went state by state and I figured out who was eligible to vote. I took out the aliens, because those are official numbers in a lot of the states. I don't know about all the illegals, but I took the populations and subtracted people who were legally here but not able to vote, and people that are felons and that sort of thing. So I figured out the voting eligible, and that's across the bottom here. 55 to 115% of the voting eligible population registered. And then on this axis, I show what percent of the voting eligible population voted. And I did this for the whole country. So think of it this way. Who's registered on this axis? Who voted on that axis? And so if you have more than 90% of your people in your voter rolls, that's a problem. Okay? It's a serious problem. And more than 100% is obviously can't be right. Your voter rolls are dirty. This is the 100% line of turnout. If you had 65% of your voting eligible people in the rolls and 65% of the voting eligible vote, that would be 100%. So we don't expect to see anybody up in here. So I shaded that out. And then for reference, I'm showing you the 90% turnout, the 75% turnout, and the 55% turnout, just for reference lines so you can see. This is where we want our elections to be. We want them to be clean. We want about 70 to 80% of the people in the rolls and 50 to 65% of the people voting. That's a good, clean election. Now, we've had them that way for decades. That's what we would want. And I got all my data from the census and the state of Secretaries of State's sites. So now I'm about to show you the data. Here are the states that have more people in their voter rolls than they have people. Okay? Alaska's way up here. They have an incentive to be in the rolls there because they get paid money for being residents. It's like $600 per person, I think it's something like that. And because of all the oil and gas that goes to them. And so people want to be in the rolls, and when they move away, they don't want to be out of the rolls. And so their rolls are particularly dirty. It makes sense. But anyway, they're the worst. And then 9 states have more people registered than they even have eligible voters. And then here's the rest of the country. Ohio, we're at around 90%. Remember I showed you in your graph from Vandalia, you guys were about there too. So we're in the pack of maybe on the dirtier side. Wyoming is the only clean voter rolls in the country, and they're ridiculously clean. And this goes back to, I think one of you said this earlier. How come they have such clean voter rolls? The answer is if you don't vote in a federal election, they take you out of the rolls. They take you out. Miss once, you're out. When you come back, they say, show us your ID, and they'll put you back in the rolls. So they don't prevent you from being in the rolls. They won't prevent you from voting. You're automatically a provisional voter at that point. So that's why they have such clean voter rolls. And that's a little aggressive, if you ask me.
I like it. Dr. Frank, does that do us good or does that do us bad?
I don't know. I would like to just say everybody can vote and not have a voter rolls, but everybody has to vote in person on election day with a photo ID and a signature.
I agree.
And then you keep that list, and then that's your new voter rolls if you want. I'd like to just kind of flush the whole thing once, because this, nibbling at the edges is not working.
Right.
And so Wyoming basically made that decision, and that's why they are so clean. But they're standalone. A couple of these have asterisks, like Maine has an asterisk. I know for a fact Maine's up at 110%, but at the time I made this graph, they hadn't released all their statistics from the elections yet, so I had to just use the official number, but then I couldn't. It was active registrants, not total registrants. But anyway, I think you get the idea. So our voter rolls are dirty all over the country. That's sort of the point of this slide. I have a whole video describing this on my YouTube page, if you want to see it. It's voter rolls in the United States since 6.5, almost 7 minutes on my YouTube channel. U.S. 2024 general election. Now I discuss it a little more. Just want to give you an idea. Put them back, okay? And so the law, in that case, you go to the law to try to clean it up. What happens? It just gets reversed in court. So I don't think
And
it.
they wound up with more than what they started.
They have more than what they started with, exactly. Okay, and by the way, it's not just one county in the state. Every one of these red counties has more people in their voter rolls than they have people. So it's not, everybody might say, well, it's just Lexington, it's just Columbus, you know, it's just one of the big counties. No, it's all around. So the other thing, should we clean voter rolls? I already told you this example about 1.2 million from Los Angeles County, but their voter rolls were right back full again. And I was just in Pennsylvania about 6 months ago, worked with a team up in Mercer, and the guy who picked me up, a lot like Scott, dedicated, hard-working patriot, picked me up in the car, drove me, he said, Dr. Frank, we worked really hard, we got 600 people out of our voter rolls. I'm like, where'd you go? It's 7,000 people in the county, that's a lot of work, 10%. He says, I sat there every day with my clerk and made her delete every one of them and watched her do it. We got, and I said, wow, that's quite a clerk. Most of the time the clerks won't do that. I said, so where do you stand now? He goes, I don't know, I think we're all ready for the election. So I said, okay, well, let's just look, because we can go online, and we downloaded the voter rolls. They were completely full again. So they went down 600, but they were back up 600 with new people. So now he has to go all doing a whole new investigation again. The point isn't that the rolls are dirty. We all know the voter rolls are dirty. The point is you're not in control. Somebody else is in control, and so you can clean them till the cows come home. That's not the solution. Judicial watch is in Oregon now, which is fun. I was there that day. The governor announced a pause in their registration system because it came to light that they were registering all the illegal aliens in their state. They were going right into the rolls, and so they had to put a pause on it. Anyway, I just think that there's a lot of talk about cleaning the voter rolls, and I understand that sentiment. I understand why people think that, because I look at the rolls and they're filthy dirty too. But that's a hamster wheel. You're not making, you're going to do a lot of energy, but you're not going to get anywhere that way. It's good. It's good that you know who's in your rolls who doesn't belong there. But ask yourself, did they vote? If someone's in the rolls who doesn't belong there and they voted, aha, now you got a potential case of fraud. That's valuable. But most of the time, people that are focusing on cleaning voter rolls don't even ask that question. They're just finding people that don't belong in the rolls. So that's a slight change. I'm going to try to wrap this up.
Can you give us your YouTube channel, by the way?
Okay.
That'd be helpful for us to...
Yeah, I can. Let's see. Forgive me for not having it right at the top of my head, because it's a new one. I've got it down here. I'll click on it for you. It's right here. All right, boom. There we go. It's my YouTube. At Douglas Frank 5204.
Douglas.
Sorry about that. Change stuff. Okay. Now, let me wrap this up.
Can you get out of the screen so we can take a shot?
Sorry. It's changing by itself.
You're standing in front of the screen.
Sorry.
How about that fast thing?
It's on auto scroll right now, so sorry about that. All right. Let's wrap this up. So what's next? What's your role? Well, it's lovely having the president up there in office, isn't it? Dropping bombs on Berlin. That's really fun. And we're having a nice celebration because of it. But we have to remember we're at war. And I liken this situation to like Normandy. We've just taken Normandy and in World War II. And isn't that great? And we're all excited and we're celebrating. But guess what? We got Berlin to go. Okay? But it's nice since we take Normandy. Now we got air cover, and now from up above, the president's dropping bombs on Berlin. That's good for us, right? But we still have to occupy. We can't just let the bombing go on. We're at war. We have to keep moving forward. And this is another military idea. Colonel Waldron taught it to me when we were at the Cyber Symposium when we were under attack. He says, no matter what happens, you just keep moving forward, keep moving forward. And that's a military idea. And it's a powerful idea. So if you're not moving forward right now in your election integrity, what are you doing? You're losing, okay? And you've got to be moving forward. So we got to keep moving forward. We got to realize we the people. I saw somebody had a sticker on their car. We the people of the government got to start acting like it. We've just forgotten that we're the government. We always want to give it to somebody else. So, you know, we enjoy the hot tub. You know, we're just. I mean, I remember being a kid, and when I was a kid, they would say, you know, you got a problem, call your legislator, right? We were trained into thinking that the government was the solution. But that's the problem. We're the solution. We're the government. We need to fix our own counties. And when we fix our own counties, then it percolates up to the state legislature. And that's basically what experienced war people like General Flynn says. Local action gives you national impact. We need to win in our county. So you need to take back Montgomery County. That's what you need to do. It's the third largest county in the state, so it might be a little big of a target to go after first. Is there a smaller target we might be able to get first? Is there a county that has a good sheriff that might be willing to interpose? I saw the book back here, Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrates. If we got a county where the sheriff would interpose on our behalf and we could support him. And is there a county that's already got maybe one or two commissioners that might be on our side? Or maybe a little coaxing, they would come on our side. And one of my rules is we never ask our sheriffs to stick their neck out. We never ask the clerks to stick their neck out, because when we do, the enemy just takes them out. It's like sending your best sniper out into the field. So we have to form a force and move forward. Art of war. A lot of people tell me, Dr. Frank, well, we got to do something. Got to do something. Well, make sure where you're attacking is not in their battlefield, where they're defending. We need to attack where they don't defend. If you're going to their courts, they're going to defend themselves there. If you're going to their laws, they're going to just change the laws. It's amazing how much they do. And I already told you the Einstein quote, doing the same thing over and over again. It's just hamster wheels. We're not getting anywhere that way. Another art of war thing. People say to me all the time, but Dr. Frank, we don't know what to do. We got to do something. All we do is we spend our energy and resources that way. You use not your troops unless there's something to be gained. Fight not unless the position is critical. So a lot of times people feel urgency. We got to do something. We got to do something. Well, that's like picking up your gun and run at the enemy. No. Restrain yourself. Come up with a strategy. Implement your strategy a step at a time. And I've been reading all these books on revolution. I could show this book. It's called Blueprint for Revolution by Popovich. He started 3 revolutions that changed countries in Europe, Eastern Europe. And he describes how you do a revolution. And there's all these techniques we can do that are really very plain, but we never think that way. Because we really are in a revolution right now, aren't we? We're taking back our country. It's like the new 1776. We're in that right now. But everybody's always looking for the silver bullet, though. Gee, we've got the lawsuit. What about the Brunson case, Dr. Frank? That's going to fix everything, you know. Or Mr. Lindell, oh, you know, we've got this. It's going to be absolutely 9-0. We're always looking for the silver bullet. There isn't a silver bullet in war, is there? It's long, it's a slog, it's nasty, it takes time. We have to gear up for a war. That's how we're winning. America is an experiment in self-government. We need to start being the government again. And I think we're confused. Right now, the problem is, in every state in America, elections are now centrally controlled by the state, including Ohio. And I already told you that the Stalin quote, we're not counting our own ballots, and I already told you that. It's time to do our sovereign duty. The Constitution made us the kings. We are the sovereigns. We've just forgotten that, right? We're looking to other people to do that. So my offer stands. I'm happy to help. Another thing I didn't talk about, and I'll just mention this, and then if you have questions, I'll take them. You got to take back your party. You got to take back the Republican Party. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story. Remember when Bledsoe was running? Yeah. I spoke at one of his rallies up in Toledo, and the 2 leaders of the party, the chair and the vice chair of the Republican Party of Ohio, called me out for a special meeting after I spoke, and they sat me down in a private room. They said, Dr. Frank, we want you to be the next Secretary of State of Ohio. We don't like LaRose. That's what they said to me. That's your party. That's our party. I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm on a national scale right now. I need to fight nationally. I'm fighting for my country. Maybe when I retire, I'll do that, you know, or maybe after I've won the election, maybe after I've fixed the country in 1 year from now, I'll consider it, right? I mean, that's really what my mindset was. I was really in that short term. We're going to fix it. We're going to absolutely 9-0 it, and then I'll be back and I'll serve. That is crazy. Long term, you need to fix your party. And I think the precinct strategy is the right way to do that. I've been using it all around the country. Read the bylaws of the party, take back your party, take control. And Plato said one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is you end up being governed by your inferiors. And that's the situation we're in. They're ethically inferior, they're intellectually inferior, they're morally inferior. When that's the situation, they're totally incompetent. I love this. Men running governments, you shouldn't be allowed to play with matches. Okay? We need, you need to establish a beachhead. Normally, when I come into a state, I don't go to a big county like Montgomery. I'm trying to get to smaller counties. But you already have really good groups here. The Ohio Patriots Alliance is awesome. And I talked to you guys the other day. You have good infrastructure here. And 3 years ago, I would have said, you have to build like the French underground. You guys need to fight an underground guerrilla war, right? That's the way I would have thought of it. But now we can come out, right? Because the troops have landed on the shore. So now I think you guys can come out, but you're going to have to be overt. You're going to have to engage the war and establish a beachhead. I think Montgomery might be a really good target county in your state. So I'm excited about it. So anyway, how about if I leave it right there? And I rambled on too much, but hopefully we had fun. I was going to play this quote for you. But my speaker went off again. I was going to play Reagan's quote. Because it's awesome. Come on, wake up. Sorry. I went to sleep again. Listen to Reagan's quote. Here we go. There it is. Do it again. Here we go.
Freedom is a fragile thing, and it's never more than one generation away from extinction. It is not ours by way of inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation, for it comes only once to a people. And those in world history who have known freedom and then lost it have never known it again.
That's where we are right now. We have a 2-year window to take it back.